I don't know about you, but I need to take a deep breath. So as a room, can we do 3 deep breaths together? Okay. And a third one. Okay, that's a little bit better. So I've been very lucky in my career. I've been in the right place at the right time a lot of the time. I'm not sure this is one of those times. But when I was asked to coach one of the big pharmaceutical companies in Switzerland last year, I thought, well, it's one of those times. So, oh, clicker, 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 clicker.
Clicker, clicker. Grab it. Just grab it, it's fine.
Thank you. So I've never been to Switzerland. I live in Cape Town in South Africa. So never been to Switzerland. Heard that it was beautiful, almost as beautiful as Cape Town. And I was asked to go on this coaching engagement with 3 of my American friends, or one who lives in Switzerland. So it all started. Okay, am I stupid? No, don't answer that. It started out really well, So 8 coaches, really experienced international coaches. We were going to do 8 pilots. The group had already done a little bit of an Agile. They had a flavor of Agile due to a big international consulting company being there. And they were cross-functional as a result. So let me give you a little bit of background about medicine. I didn't know this, but it takes 10 years from when they discover a molecule till when they actually get the drug onto the market. Okay? This particular company focuses only on terminal illnesses. So they don't work on anything. I don't know whether they're working on corona, but they don't work on anything that's not terminal. So this is I could resonate with this purpose. So you can imagine that people who work in an environment and do clinical research where the longer I take to get my work done, the more people die, are under a lot of pressure. They put themselves under a lot of pressure, and there's a lot going on. Apart from that, clinical companies also, unless they get the drug into the market before they patent, which apparently you guys call patent, okay? Before that expires, that's really the window where they make their money. When the patent expires, the generic companies grab it and they make money off the drug. So immense pressure, and I was really glad to support these people. So generally, when I start out with an engagement, I do a little bit of a review, notice what's going on, give some feedback, and then we do a shared session where we set the vision for what they want agility to look like. The first meeting I had with the leaders, I actually had it here at the Business Agility Conference last year in Hub 2. First meeting I had with the leaders, the first thing came to light. 2 of my leaders were in Basel, in Switzerland. One was in Wellen, and one was in San Francisco. So where I thought I would be going to Basel and spending 6 months in beautiful Switzerland, all of a sudden the whole picture changed. This was going to be a virtual assignment. So, still full of enthusiasm. I did a wonderful virtual facilitation course with Marsha a couple of years ago. I've done the Judy Reese one that IC Agile so kindly offers to their facilitators. So I'm good with virtual facilitation. We started out. Here's the problem. In this group, they had 2 golden hours per day. That's the time that people in San Francisco, Basel, and Wellen is just outside London, that they are all awake. And this time was already, as you can imagine, packed. The group's between 100 and 180 and 120 people, so it's a lot of people to get online. I must tell you that the quality of the virtual conversations were very low. They were still doing conference calls. People were using Zoom, but they were phoning in, no cameras, no mics. So really, one-way conversation, PowerPoint slides. So not great conversations. But anyway, there was no way that I could get in sideways into those 2 hours. So after 2 months, I had a total of 3 contact days. Now, these pilots were only going to be 3 months long. So I was in deep trouble. I had done some individual interviews with people, which I tend to do. I had finally managed to get a retrospective with a part of the team organized. I hadn't done any. I normally do a little bit of a value stream mapping of just one of the more important processes. None of that. So in desperation, the management group, the leadership group, which were absolutely wonderful, decided, okay, they'll give me a focus. Just go and focus on our product team. They are in Welland, so they're mostly co-located. And that's where we think we've got the biggest problem at the moment. And you know, that thing about local optimization, I thought, well, you know, right now, if the only thing I can do is locally optimize a little bit, then that's what I have to do. And we'll have to deal with the sub-optimization of the whole a little bit later on, you know. So I did that and managed to, you know, very quickly after that, turn out a summary of what was going already well for them and what were the challenges going to be. They were a really good team, good leadership, strong leadership, really devoted to their work, got results real quickly. On the negative side, you know, and we all know this, the amount of work in progress really was killing them. These people, apart from the fact that when you work remotely, those of you who are remote workers would know that your workday tends to stretch to be with people in other countries who are not in the same time zones. I certainly know that. So they were working long hours, and they were working on multiple initiatives. You know, so the big pharma companies are struggling at the moment against the biotechs. So these companies have been around. I mean, this particular one had been around for over 100 years. It was a family business, and they are like a big oil tanker. They move really slowly. So not only are they struggling to get drugs into the market as a result of the normal clinical trial process, which, by the way, Lean and Agile is really begging to go and do something to those processes. So they could really do with our help. But they were also struggling in terms of funding because of the biotech companies. So we looked at, you know, we talked through the report that I did. They asked me to suggest some experiments, which I did. At that point already, it was clear to me, you know, there were 4 things that we could say are more or less agile. But really, the problems were in other areas. I got together with a group, you know, because all of those things were just my suggestions. You know, everybody is right, but only partially, including the coach. So sat down with them and talked through it, looked at the experiments. And what was very interesting was that the thing that they said was the biggest problem for them was their interaction with their outside partner. Now, this was actually not part of my scope as an Agile coach. But when I explored this with them, it turned out that about 40% of the total workload was as a result of the rework because of the bad relationship between these two. So one of the very first experiments was a very simple one. There was a belief that the other party, the outside party, didn't care at all about doing things better. Experiment was simply that the leaders would ask the leaders of the outside partner company whether they would be willing to have a conversation about the relationship. Nobody believed they would say yes. So, you know, they just believed they didn't care. So everybody was really surprised when actually they said yes. So the ask was just, would you like to spend 2 hours at our next big face-to-face get-together talking about our relationship? Answer was yes. And like most systems coaches know, that question alone already changed the relationship. Okay? So communicating positive intent or, intent to work together already changed stuff. So we chose only 3 experiments. That was the first one. It went over so quickly that we could do another one, okay? In the meantime, though, at this point, 5 of the pilots were already cancelled. So for a variety of reasons, which hopefully I'll have time to tell you about, the biggest reason cited by the company was the coaches were not delivering value, okay? That caused quite a bit of strain behind the scenes in our Agile coaching company, because people were trying to figure out, we were confounded by this, we were really trying to figure out what's going on, how can we be different? I can tell you that all of us experienced a sense of, well, maybe we don't know as much as we thought we did, or we're not as experienced as we thought we were. And in general, that spilled over into the engagement, okay? I was really quite desperate to get going with this group, because the one day that we had the kickoff, which, by the way, 5 people pitched for, okay? The leader was there, but only 5 people pitched for it. That day was the first time I saw them really in person, and I was really looking for an opportunity to just spend some time educating. And that came in the form of a day together at a conference. So they promised me that they would give me a full day, which didn't happen. They were late, so we had 5 hours instead of 8. I had probably over-prepared for, like I do, over-prepared for the session, arrived there, and I was going to do 2 things with them: do an alliance to teach them about how we consciously contract about relationships and what we want to create. So alliance is kind of a working agreement on steroids. And I was going to play a game with them to explain flow and work in progress, etc. Note to self, don't fold boats with people with PhDs and double PhDs, okay? Like, the air left the room. So we did that, and then they asked me, well, please, we've got this serious issue that we need to talk about. Can we get the rest of the time to talk about our issue, So, I mean, what could I say? So I went there full of hope, and I left there feeling completely defeated. Okay, so this was my big chance. We were going to start, and nothing again happened, And really, the turning point for me came when I spoke to my performance coach. They also had internal coaches that supported the team, and that was supposed to support us. The turnaround for me came when I spoke to my internal coach 2 days later. And I was saying to her, so I really don't know what to do anymore. I'm failing this team. There are all these things that from the world of Agile we can bring into the system. And I just don't get the opportunity. I never get them in the same place. So she said to me, why are Agile coaches always wanting to be at the center of things, facilitating, educating, da-da-da-da. Now, we know, those of us who are coaches, we know why that is the case, okay, partly. But what she said next really stopped me. She said to me, why can't you just be of service to your team? Now, I'm a professional coach. I'm a trained professional coach, okay? And in the 3 months up to then, somehow I also lost the plot. Like Sandy yesterday said, when things are really not going the way that we want to, we go back to our original urges. My original urges, jump in there and get it done, So that really shocked me, to stop and think about what I was doing and to realize that maybe, just maybe, my job wasn't what I thought it originally was. My job wasn't to bring Agile or agility or lean or anything to this group. My job was simply to do the best thing for this team that I could possibly do, which included all my other skills, So Agile coaches generally they don't only know Agile, You have facilitation, coaching, whatever you did before you became an Agile coach. So that's exactly what I did. I also realized this. Who knows what business agility looks like in your organization, in your team? Nobody. You know, we were working in a novel area. We were working in clinical research, okay? So certainly there wasn't any patterns out there. I mean, there are patterns for finance and marketing and all of those, you know, all of those spaces, HR. There are patterns, okay? But even if there are patterns, who knows what works in your organization? So, you know, the title of my talk, The Tail Wagging the Dog, we tend to look at really how can we bring Agile. It's all about Agile, you know, and agility and growing agility. Agile shouldn't be a goal. I know we've got fluency models. Agile should not be a goal. Agile is a tool to solve really complex business problems. There are many others. Okay, do not forget that. And as leaders in your organization, you know what works in your environment and what doesn't work. Okay? So we did do some Agile practices. Some of them flew, some of them didn't. Okay? So things like stand-ups, some sub-teams within the bigger team liked them, some didn't. Visualization of work, you know, using boards, that worked really well for some groups. For some, it didn't work at all. Okay? The biggest thing that really helped was, there were two things. The first thing is that I always, when I do engagements, I have a 30-minute call or meeting every single week with the leaders in the group, where we look at what are the impediments, what do we need to focus on next to grow agility, and, you know, how can we help one another. So that really helped. The second thing was I also introduced retrospectives very early on. And for some reason, retrospectives really worked well with this group. So they had never taken the time to reflect at all. So it was just an hour a week, but they walked away with an improvement every single week. And in fact, the same week that I was so despondent, they ran their first own retrospective and came up with a brilliant suggestion. So this shit does work. So some of the other things just, you know, went down like a lead balloon. I left them at the end of September. At that stage, they were well versed in running their own retrospectives. They did them religiously. We'd also done a whole bunch of other things that they asked me for. Notably, one thing that I'd never done before, we would have a half-an-hour education session, virtual education session every week. And I would cover a topic of their choice. And even though, you know, a lot of the Agile practices actually didn't really fly, they were still interested to find out about flow, limiting work in progress, etc. So we had sessions on those that were recorded. The people that could make it were there. The other ones watched it afterwards. And I also did a lot more documentation than I normally. I've got kind of a Zen attitude to documentation. I did a lot more how-to guides for them, you know, that they could continue with. They are still, by the way, I spoke to my project manager. There was a project manager in that leadership team. She, by the way, did a talk on Friday at a conference in London about the whole experience, you know, about how well it went for them, you know, and how it was improving their lives. So was there a lot more to do? Absolutely. There were, you know, the typical big organization impediments were still there. So they needed to look at the organization as a whole a lot more before there would be more improvements on, you know, on a clinical team level, okay? But the rework that actually constituted about 40% of their work, that had dwindled down to almost nothing, and the collaboration became really collaborative between them and their outside partners. So major impact there, okay? So what did I learn? One of the things that I picked up, the reason why my pilot succeeded, and believe me, we retrospected this in detail, was simply the attitude of the leaders. So they were responsible for most of the changes, okay? One of the things that my leaders did that none of the other leaders did, they really got involved. They saw this as their initiative, not the coach coming in and telling them how to be agile and giving them tools, etc. They really got their hands dirty. As a leader, there's a couple of things that you can do. You need to make sure, hang on, have I gone too far? No. As a leader, you need to make sure that you and your group are ready for coaching, and you need to be actively part of what the initiative is. Okay. So thank you. That's it.